Hey everybody, this is Ray, and today we will be continuing our video series on White Fragility by DiAngelo. In this series, I just want to reset why I'm doing this series. I am doing this series because this book is being used to evangelize the culture at large, and even the church, with a pagan religion. So we're just going chapter by chapter. We're going to walk through this book. I'm going to walk you through it, show you her arguments, show you the fallacies that she's employing, and rebut the historicity a little bit. So let's just dive into chapter 8, the result, White Fragility. So all this time, she has been setting the underlying foundation for what she sees as white fragility. Now we're getting into what it looks like, how it manifests itself. And I guess this is a repeat of several chapters, but we'll see. The chapter starts off with a situation where this woman, conveniently named Karen, is talking over a person of color named Joan. And Karen insists that this has nothing to do with race. But DiAngelo insists that we all bring our racial history with us because it's, we're living in Assassin's Creed where we have our ancestral DNA. So Karen is obviously bringing the fact that her ancestors were white slave owners on a plantation in Mississippi, and Joan is bringing, Jim Crow and slavery also with her. So white Americans believe that they also experience racial prejudice. Apparently this is considered a remarkable preponderance to someone who works at NPR. And according to her definition, she only believes that white people can experience a trivial amount of racial prejudice. She really trivializes this. And now we're going to go on about NPR. Remarkably, a sense of power, a sense of white superiority and the knowledge of racial power codes appears to develop as early as preschool. So racial power codes, that's a new term for us. Again, it's possible that if you're in preschool, you don't know. You don't even know about different races. Now we got, as in other Western nations, white children born in the United States inherit moral predicament of living in a white supremacist society. So now she's quoting an academic named Judith Martin. Despite its ubiquity, white superiority is also unnamed and denied by most whites. So again, white superiority is this occult thing. No one speaks of it. No one talks about it. It is not acknowledged. It's just there. That's how she views this. It's very conspiratorial. Let's see. For example, in 2016, the Oscars were challenged for their lack of diversity. When asked if she felt that the Oscars were behind the times for failing to nominate a single black actor for the second year in a row, actor Helen Mirren defaulted to white racial innocence in her reply. It just so happened it went that way. Now, once again, let's just reset the point that black Americans are about 13% of the population. So, in my opinion, just from my observation, I don't know any studies on this, but I would also say that despite being 13% of the population, black Americans are actually overrepresented in Hollywood movies. In fact, if anyone's underrepresented, it's definitely Hispanics and possibly Asians. But the Oscars are, in theory, a merit-based award. So here, again, DiAngelo does not believe in meritocracy. So she believes that, people should be nominated based on their race. And again, this is also white leftists that are not being woke enough here. So, even her people can't win. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to talk about trauma. When I consult with organizations that want me to help them recruit and retain a more diverse workforce, I am consistently warned that past efforts to address the lack of diversity have resulted in trauma for white employees. This is literally the term used to describe the impact of a brief, isolated workshop, trauma. This required years of avoiding the topic altogether. Okay. Of course, this white racial trauma in response to the equity effort has also ensured that the organization has remained overwhelmingly white. And then she goes on to say this. By employing terms that connote physical abuse, whites tap into the classic story that people of color, particularly African Americans, are dangerous and violent. But you know who's been using the word trauma this entire time? DiAngelo. So she's been misusing the word trauma this entire time. And I would also disagree that, I don't think that this is traumatic. She's saying that white people call this traumatic, not the white people themselves. They probably just think it's stupid. But again, DiAngelo feels so important about who she is and what she's doing that if you disagree with her, you must have been traumatized by the confrontation of your racial self-image. Okay, so now we're doing another circle jerk with another sociologist. Probing forbidden racial issues results in verbal incoherence, digressions, long pauses, repetition, and self-corrections. Bonilla Silva, or is it Bonilla Silva? I think not sure how to pronounce that. Suggests that this incoherent talk is a function of talking about race in a world that insists that race does not matter. My wife notes that I think it's more likely that it is more likely the result of people being afraid to talk about race because they will be accused of racism if they do speak. I think that's an interesting perspective. However, whites do engage in racial discourse under controlled conditions. We notice the racial positions of racial others. Of course, black people or Asian people are these others. And discuss this freely with ourselves, albeit often in coded ways. The refusal to directly acknowledge this race talk results in a kind of split consciousness that leads to irrationality and incoherence. This denial also guarantees that racial misinformation that circulates in the culture and frames our perspective will be left unexamined. So there she employs a postmodern argument about the racial frames, again, because we see everything through these glasses of race. But she has repeated herself a lot on this. Let's see. So now we're in a section on white fragility as a form of bullying. Let's see. Okay, this is a nice little quote here. Let me be clear. While the capacity for white people to sustain challenges to our racial positions is limited and in this way fragile, the effects of our responses are not fragile at all. They are quite powerful because they take advantage of historical and institutional power and control. So everything's about power. She idolizes power. It's again going back to that critical theory where everything is about a power dynamic. And this is, where white fragility comes into play. White fragility functions as a form of bullying. I'm going to make it so miserable for you to confront me, no matter how diplomatically you try to do so, that you will simply back off, give up, and never raise that issue again. So apparently white people are just trying to beat into submission accusations of being called racist. And that's, maybe that's how some people react. And in her experience, it was probably very justified to just try to shut down or filibuster the conversation as much as possible. White fragility keeps people of color in line and in their place. Again, she views white people as having this belief of black people or Asian people that they have a place that they need to be in. And again, that's not my experience. That's only hers, I guess. Let me be clear. The term white fragility is intended to describe a very specific white phenomenon. White fragility is much more than mere defensiveness or whining. It may be conceptualized as a sociology of dominance, an outcome of white people's socialization into white supremacy, and a means to protect, maintain, and reproduce white supremacy. So again, I think she's using the word white supremacy but does not know what it means, because she redefined that multiple chapters ago as well. This term is not applicable to other groups, so you can't say black fragility, Asian fragility. You can't say that because that's not how it works. In my workshops, I often ask people of color, how often have you given white people feedback on our unaware yet inevitable racism? And a few other questions. Eye rolling, head shaking, outright laughter follow. Again, I don't think that this is a representative sample, because she's a diversity trainer, so she's only going to be talking to certain people that actually want to talk to her, most likely. What would it be like if you could simply give us feedback, have us graciously receive it, reflect, and work to change that behavior? Recently, a man of color sighed and said, "It would be revolutionary." It would be revolutionary if we could receive, reflect, and work to change that behavior. Now, I don't think that word, I think that's some, Marxism intensified. That's my comment on that, because revolutionary, because you'll see that she's teasing, or she's laying a foundation for what she ultimately calls for in the last chapter. So revolutionary, she's just throwing that out there, seeing how you take it. It would be Marxist revolutionary. So we're going to see the Marxism intensify from here. Now, once again, this is a series of videos. If you like and want to see more of this, do subscribe and hit that bell button even. My name's Ray, and I will catch you on the next one.